Hello, entrepreneurs. Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneur Fundamentals. My name is Robert Bitto. I am broadcasting from my wonderful fitness room in my business. Yes, Sueños Latin American Imports believes in wellness, and that's why we have a little fitness room here, or a wellness room. But anyway, I'm mixing it up today and filming from here. So we're not talking about fitness today. Although in a future video, I will talk about entrepreneurs and fitness. I addressed that before, but there's more stuff I want to add. But today we're going to talk about landlords. Landlords are not gods. I have been renting commercial property since my mid-20s. And when I was a young buck, a junior woodchuck, whatever you want to say, when I was younger, I was intimidated by landlords. Because think about it. I was a broke, struggling entrepreneur, and here were these people with, properties. A lot of times I was renting from individuals and not corporations. The second property I rented, I believe, was from a corporation. But I've dealt with a lot of mom and pop outfits. But there is still that intimidation factor at the beginning, especially. Now, I'm not intimidated by landlords. I mean, I know they're human just like you and me. And they have their foibles, and they may appear to be tough, and they want to be tough around you so that you don't get away with anything, or so that you abide by your lease. But at the end of the day, they're humans. And some of them are pretty awkward human beings. I could have a whole channel talking about interactions with landlords. I could fill up many YouTube shows with funny stories and serious stories about my interactions with landlords. Some landlords are uncompromising, some are cool, some are flexible, some are rigid. At the end of the day, you do have a contract with them. So that's what spells out your relationship. If they want to be your buddy and drink with you, after you close your shop or something, that's really up to them. I mean, I've had some standoffish landlords, and I've had landlords claim that they thought of me as an extension of their family. People have weird views about things, but an Entrepreneur Fundamentals show wouldn't be complete without my little stories, right? From my vast experience. I'm thinking about an uncompromising landlord that I've had. And I went to try to renegotiate my contract with him during the housing crisis. I had retail store property, and he wanted to raise my rent. And I said, look, all around you, people are going out of business. The economy's tanking. How about you lower my rent and extend my contract? And he thought it was, really bold and out of place for me to be asking such a question. But when I had made the appointment for this man's office, he had a separate office because he owned 50 properties. One guy, not a corporation. And he had a staff. I talked to his secretary, and she said, make an appointment. You never know what will happen. Because I told her, I said, I want to renegotiate the contract. I want, do you think he would do this and stuff? And she set up an appointment. But when I went in for the appointment, she gave me this look that I knew it was a turkey shoot. I knew that I was dead. There wasn't anything that I I put forth my case, and then it was his chance to show who was in charge. Like, who the heck do you think you are? I didn't come to the table with anything, according to him. And then he said, he went into this whole long speech, and then he said, I would rather have the space that I'm renting to you vacant for 5 years than to lower your rent by 1 dime. And then that's when I stood up and I said, thank you for your time. Because how clear can you get? How much more clear or clearer? Clearer. How much clearer can you be? That's it. There's nothing there. And one time I had hinted with this guy, it was like a few years before that, I had hinted that times were a little tough. Would he be okay with accepting the rent a few days late, whatever, because I was having a tough time in the summertime. And he was pretty uncompromising. And then I'll never forget what he told me too. He said, and if you break the lease, I will litigate you. Okay, all right. Yeah, you're bigger than me. I got it. Yeah, all right. Okay. Now can I get back to what I needed to do, right? One other funny story that I have, well, it's based on something serious. There was a landlord who also owned a lot of properties, and he thought he was hot stuff. And he had lived in the city I was in for generations. He was like 6th generation in that city. And it wasn't an old city. It wasn't an old state. It was the 48th state admitted to the Union. 1912, right? His family arrived there in the 1850s. And so he had all this property and stuff, but at the end of the day, he was kind of a redneck. And I hate to use that term, but he was very uncouth a lot of times. He was a good-hearted guy. He didn't know how to express himself, though, I think. And I remember I was held up at gunpoint. That's a topic of another show. And then he came in, and he really didn't know what to do. He didn't know. He wanted to support me, I think even emotionally. But he didn't know how to act. And he tried to sympathize with me. He said, first of all, I'll never forget this speech. First of all, I have no idea what you're going through, and I really can't sympathize with you completely. He said, I've had some tough spots in my life. I've had problems with women, with drugs, with alcohol, with the ponies, but I can't understand what you're going through. And if there's anything you need, and I was like, okay, well, thanks. And I was still a little thunderstruck because it was a few days after that happened to me, that very traumatic experience. But he kept talking to me, and I was getting more irritated. It took me a while to get over that whole armed robbery, but I was getting a little bit irritated. And then I said, if it gets too hard here for me, if this happens again, here's the lease. And I made this like ripping motion. I don't know. I was still out of it. Like I said, I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought they were going to come back. They promised they would finish me off, whatever. And then I made the ripping motion, ripping up papers motion. And then the landlord said, well, leases were made to be broken. And whatever. The place I was renting from him was kind of dumpy, and it wasn't in the best part of the city. And he gave me my damage deposit. When my lease was up, it was a 4-year term, and I moved into my new store in a better part of town, and better amenities there. He came in person to give me my full damage deposit back. It was like $2,500. And he told me, he said, in that property you rented for me, you're the very first person in 30 years that I've ever given this back to. Well, you know what? It's tough for landlords. That's an indication there. So, they're not gods, and maybe we can throw them a little sympathy every once in a while too, because they're in a very difficult position. You may be a hardworking person and you may take your obligations very seriously, but a lot of these guys have been worn down by their tenants. And so, they may have this hard shell exterior, but behind that shell, they're human too. So keep that in mind. They're not gods, they're not infallible. And I could go on and on and on about the whole landlord situation, but I'm going to stop here and maybe have a part 2, part 3, part 4 sometime in the future. I hope you found something in this helpful. And until next time, remember to always work hard, and may all of your entrepreneurial dreams come true.